Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Faye. I'm just gonna teach you math in the simplest way. Today's lesson is about functions. First thing, what are functions? What does a function mean? Imagine a machine called f. If you put in x, that x is called the input because it's going into the machine. And then the machine f changes x into so many ways and then gives you a y, then y is called an output. How do we show it? We show it as f of x equals something. For example, f of x equals to 3x minus 1. What does that mean? It means the job of your machine f is to multiply x by 3, then subtract 1 from it. So if x goes in, y comes out. Let's make some examples. Let's say 2 goes in. Then the machine changes it in 3 times 2 minus 1, which is 6 minus 1, or 5. So 5 comes out as your y. For the entries and the outputs of a function can be written as an ordered pair or something that we used to call them points on grid paper. The first element will show your x, the second element will show your y. So if 2 goes in as your x, you have to start with 2. If 5 comes out as your y, you have to show it as like 5. And if you want to show that point on a Cartesian plane, you have to make sure that your x is on the horizontal line and your y will be on the vertical line here. So I go 2 to the right and then 5 up. Where these two lines meet, that becomes my 2 and 5 point. So next thing that we should know about function is the word domain. You definitely have heard this before. You might not know what that means, but let's get into that. Domain means all the possible x values. For each machine, what is allowed to go in will be different. And what comes out will also be different, calling the range, which is all the possible, you can guess that now, y values. Okay, how are we gonna find them now? As I mentioned before, x is the horizontal line, right? So if I have a graph, let's say I have this graph here. For finding the domain, I have to project that graph into the x-axis. So I'll start with drawing vertical lines and putting each point on the x-axis. As you see, it turns into an interval, for this case, that starts from 0 and goes to positive infinity. How do I show it? For the domain, we have a notation because it's showing, representing all the x values. I have to say x's such that x's are bigger than or equal to 0 because it started from 0 here and then went to 1, 2, 3, and all the numbers between them until positive infinity. And the values that x can acquire, if this graph is continuous, if the points are connected to each other, you have to say that x's are elements of real numbers. Now it's time to do the same thing for y. Let's say this point here is 1. As I mentioned before, the y is the vertical line, the vertical axis. So I have to project my graph into the y-axis to find it as an interval. So it's starting from this point and going up to positive infinity again. How do I show the range? I'll show it with an R. It's representing the y value, so y's such that this vertical line, this straight line that I put here, means such that, or where. It's just a mathematical notation for that. Okay, y's are growing from 1, going to 2, 3, 4, 5, and all the positive values. So y's are bigger than or equal to 1. And again, since my graph is connected, it's a solid line, I have to say that my y's are elements of real numbers. Now let's solve a problem. Let's say I have my f of x as 4x plus 10. And this is a question. And part A asked me to calculate f of negative 3, and part B tells me f of x equals to 2. Okay, let's start with part A. First thing that I have to compare to, I have to see where that negative 3 is coming from and what is it representing. Okay, if you compare the f of x equals to 4x plus 10 with f of negative 3, you'll see that negative 3 sat instead of x. So I'll do the same thing for the equation given. I'll say, okay, f of negative 3 equals replacing x by negative 3. So 4 times negative 3 plus 10, which is negative 12 plus 10, or just negative 2. Okay, that now gives me a point, an x and y, an ordered pair. X being negative 3, so I'll write it as negative 3, and then y being negative 2. Now the second one might be a bit trickier, but it's not difficult at all. See that 2 is sitting instead of the whole f of x, not x anymore because it's not in the bracket, and it's sitting outside, which means f of x equals to 2. Which means, again, in the equation given, I have to replace f of x with 2. So if I want to write it, it turns into 2 equals to 4x plus 10. Okay, I will move the 10 to the other side, then negative 8 will equal to 4x. Then I will divide by a 4 both sides, which gives me x as negative 2. Okay, that again gave me a point. X as negative 2, so I'll write it as negative 2, and then y was given to me as 2. That's how I solve these problems. Okay, this is everything we need for functions today. Make sure to subscribe, share, and like this video. And if you have a question that doesn't make sense, it's still a question mark in your head, just drop a line. I'd be happy to answer. Thank you for watching. See you next time.